Hey, vegan freaks. By the time you hear this, it'll probably be March 29th or 30th, and this is our 30-second podcast.
When we were kids, the bugs and the birds fascinated us. They were just like us. And we were taught they slammed the door. It's not cool to feel too much, but some of us break free. Totally wanna vegan freak. That's when you're
Hey, everybody. How are you doing?
Hello, this is Jenna.
And I'm Bob, and we're back again for another episode of Vegan Freak Radio, number 32.
Yes, here we are. And it's been
Yeah.
a crazy week.
It's been pretty busy for us. That's probably why this show is going to be late like the other show was. We're always late.
We're always late, so we should just stop saying we're
You know,
going to have a show out earlier.
How about this? We're going to have a show out every week, and we'll get it out when we can.
That makes sense.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try really hard to get out on Monday, Tuesday. Sometimes we get out on Wednesday. And if we get out on Thursday, we're just really fucking up.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we don't have to be F-word free this week.
No, we don't.
My mom said she really appreciated the F-word free show last week. It was very funny. And my mom also likes the Dino segment a lot. She said that she really likes Dino.
Cool.
He sounds nice, she said.
Yeah,
She doesn't know him then. No, Dino is nice.
Yeah.
So, we got all kinds of things going. We need to thank our new subscribers.
Yes, we got a couple more, and thank you so much, of course, as always.
Absolutely. And I've got some shout-outs to do for donators, but we'll get to those next week.
Okay.
So if you donated recently and been in touch with me, it's just that I'm kind of behind in my email queue from going away for a couple of days, and I will get to it, and I really promise. And you rock. We appreciate the donations, but I'm just behind.
Yeah, going away was very good for our psyche, just to get away from a few days, but it did set us back a little bit farther than we had expected.
It set us back quite a bit. And it set us back even more because we decided to, I don't know. Actually, I do know how it happened. I was going to say,
Okay.
I don't know how it happened, but I know how it happened. And there is a thread on our forums about Pet Finder. And I had been to petfinder.com before to look at dogs. And Jenna and I had been talking for a long time about maybe bringing another dog into the family. And, we thought we would do it over the summer. We had a little more time and things like that. But there was a thread on our forums about Pet Finder, and I went and I looked at this, one of the local shelters, and it was extremely full. Like, they had tons of, just tens and tens, lots and lots of dogs, right? And I kept looking at these dogs and thinking, my God, this place is full, and we have a couple of days off, and we have the room, and we have the resources, and, well, let's go get another dog. And, Jenna's like, well, I don't know, it's not such a good time. I'm like, oh, it's fine time, it's fine. And, I worked on her a little bit over a course of about 24 hours, and then I showed her some cute pictures of some dogs. I said, look how cute this dog is. And I would take the picture with my mouse and kind of jiggle it up and down and go, hi, Jenna, I'm a little dog. You don't want to leave me here in this pound, do you? And I would, shake the picture down.
Yeah, and then you left the picture of one of the cute dogs up on your screen, too. You didn't take it down. So then the next day, there it was, the picture of this cute dog named Spud.
Spud was really cute.
Spud was cute.
So we decided, all right, let's go over to the shelter and have a peek. So we go over to the shelter. The shelter is really full. It's unlike any animal shelter I've ever been to before.
Yeah, it's not like a row of kennels like I think in most other shelters that I've been to.
Mm.
All the dogs are outside except the really small ones.
And the really big ones.
Yeah.
The really big and kind of dangerous ones are inside.
Mm-hmm.
But all the other dogs are outside in pens or in kind of, cyclone fence type kennel. And this is the thing that I found really hard to kind of grasp because I've never been to a shelter like this. The dogs were kind of chained or roped out to dog houses. So they had their own little dog house, each dog, but they were outside. And I don't know if they lived outside all the time or what.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But I don't know. I mean, it gets really cold up here, so I had a hard time kind of wrapping my head around that. But, I think the woman who runs the shelter does everything she can with the resources she has.
Yeah, I just got the sense that the resources are immensely limited.
They're real slim. And all the animals seem really, really healthy and well cared for. So I had no question that, she was taking good care of them. There was no doubt about it. But it was a no-kill shelter. It is a no-kill shelter. And that's a good thing. But, it was just so sad to go and see all those dogs. It's so tough, to see all those dogs in the shelter. And there were probably 30 or 40 dogs in this one shelter. Maybe more than that even. I mean, that was the number that were outside, right?
Yeah, it was the ones that we saw, yeah.
So there were a lot of dogs at the shelter itself. And I don't know, it was difficult. It was really difficult.
Yeah. And as soon as we got there and I saw just how many dogs that there were, and I just knew, I knew we had to take a dog out of here.
Well, isn't that what you said to me?
Yeah, I did. I'm like, we have to go home with a dog. We have to take a dog out of here and give one of them a home.
Yep. And, so we did.
Yep.
So we walked around and looked at all these various dogs and kind of talked to them and pet them and try to get a sense of who would maybe fit best here. We had room for a dog, and we didn't want to bring two more dogs into the house because that would be too much. So the original dog that we had contemplated because we thought he was kind of cute or whatever was, we thought about bringing Spud home. But Spud was he was with his father, and the woman who worked at the shelter wanted to keep the two dogs together because they'd grown up together and they knew each other. And so we didn't end up taking Spud, but we looked at a couple other dogs, and we also decided that a female would probably work better with our other dog who's a male. And we happened upon this little dog named Emmy.
Yeah.
And she's just immediately sweet.
And she wasn't barking like crazy like the other dogs. I mean, she was interested. She was like at the front of her kennel, but she wasn't going crazy.
And she seemed to have a really good temperament, which I think was really important to bring her into this kind of house, in which Mole is a great dog. Our current, the dog we've had for a couple of years now. He's awesome. I love him to death. But with that said, he's got some weird little personality traits that not every dog can deal with. He's a little OCD. He's a little weird.
Yeah.
He's got these weird things that he does that to remind me in every way of adult obsessive compulsive disorders.
Yeah, and anybody else who has a lab is probably familiar with these kind of things. But he's particularly, like, not quite high-strung, but just intense. He's very intense about everything he does.
Yeah.
So
Everything he does is full-on. Like, if it's sleeping, full-on asleep. If it's eating, it's only eating. Whatever he does, he lives to the max. And but he's also kind of hyper, and he's got this energy about him that some dogs find difficult to deal with. So I knew we needed to get a dog that was fairly calm. I knew we needed to get a dog that's fairly well adjusted because, Mole isn't quite so... He's a great dog.
He's awesome.
I love him to death. He's like the best, but he's a little weird, In being realistic, he's a little hyper. So we got to, we saw Emmy and we thought she was really a really sweet dog and that she would work out well here with our cat and all that.
Yeah, so we took her out for a little walk, and she was pulling a little on the leash. I don't think she's walked on a leash much. But she was so sweet and so well-adjusted and just so calm and lovey. And you put your hand down to pet her, and she bumped her head into your hand, and it's just so cute. And then the woman at the shelter just said to us, I would really love to see Emmy go home. She's been here for a year.
Yeah, that was... she said, Emmy's been here for a year and she's the sweetest dog. And Jen and I looked at each other and said, okay.
Okay.
That's all it took, right?
Yep.
So
and I couldn't believe that she'd been there that long.
I couldn't either. And, I found it really surprising because she is such a sweet dog. She's very well behaved. She's housebroken. She's had a couple little things indoors where I think she's been marking. When she first got here, she went and kind of whizzed in one of the rooms in the house. And I think... it was just such a little tiny bit of whiz. I think she was just marking. So she goes to the door when she has to go out. She's not had any accidents since, really. And she's a great dog. I mean, she's really well behaved. She's very stable. She's trained. Someone put a lot of time into working with this dog previously.
Yeah.
She knows how to sit. She shakes. She stays. She knows how to go down. And she was somebody's dog at some point.
And she's got an amazing temperament. She's not scared of anything. She can hold her own with Mole, who's twice her size, and she pushes him around.
Yeah, exactly.
And, she's just amazingly stable.
But the thing is that when we first got her, I was really sad, actually. I mean, I wasn't sad because we got her, but I was sad because I was thinking, here's this dog who has no problems to speak of, and she languished away in that shelter for a year. She suffered there in that shelter. Not that it's a horrible place, but it's a shelter, right? So there's not a ton of human contact, and she languished there for a year, and I felt really horrible because it drove home to me the ways in which how many other animals out there are just like her, or how many animals out there are just dogs that want to be in a home, even if they aren't really all that well behaved or perfect. There are animals out there that are used to being with people and have been betrayed by people.
Yep.
And I think that's the worst thing.
It is. And especially when we heard the story of Emmy, that her family, she got pregnant.
Yeah.
And their family didn't spay her, so she got pregnant, and they couldn't deal with it, so they dropped her off at the kennel.
Not the
Not
kennel.
the kennel, sorry, the shelter.
The shelter.
So, there she stayed, and she was obviously loved. You could tell she was really good around kids.
Mm-hmm.
She belonged to someone, and they just couldn't deal with her, so they dropped her off. And they didn't get her spayed, so it was her fault.
And that the whole disposability thing really bothers me too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just we treat animals like they're disposable, and that really bothers me a lot because this is a dog who is so lovey. She wants to be around people and she loves people, and dogs that have been around people like to be around people generally if they haven't been abused. So I just think, wow, it just seemed to me to be so sad, that every one of these dogs in a shelter has a story, and those stories are all sad, and I think we need to do something about all of those animals. And I think, some people say, well, okay, you adopted a dog, big deal, right? What does that do? Well, I look at it this way. We adopted one dog, and there's still 1 million more, 2 million, or however many million more out there. But if everybody who had the means and everybody who had the room could adopt a dog, this wouldn't be a problem. And if people stopped buying dogs that were bred specifically for sale, right, this wouldn't be a problem. Mm-hmm. So if everybody could adopt a dog, everybody who had the means in the room and the ability adopted a dog, we could really put a dent in this thing. So, the way I look at it is, we're doing what I think we need to do in order to help alleviate some of the problems.
Yeah, and it matters to Emmy.
And it matters to Emmy. She is clearly happy.
Yeah, and it matters to that dog who's going to take her place, who doesn't have to be abused or doesn't have to wander around starving, and who at least has the chance to be adopted now, because the shelter was full. And while we were standing there waiting to fill out some paperwork, some woman came by with a dog that she had found, that she knew where it was from. There was a place that they were supposedly abusing dogs, and the woman at the shelter couldn't take the dog because the shelter was full. And and she had suggested that, and besides, it was from some area where they're not supposed to take dogs from. They're supposed to go to a different shelter, and that shelter, she made it sound like it was a pretty horrible place.
Yeah, and the dog control officer apparently doesn't do anything for a cruelty complaint in that area, which is really a problem. Right.
So if we take Emmy out of the shelter, and there is room, that matters to that other dog too.
Mm-hmm.
So that whose life could be saved. So it's just a shame. I don't know, the whole situation's very sad. But we're very glad to have a new member of our family, even though I didn't deal with it very well for the first couple of days.
You were more freaked out than anybody.
I think so. Well, like I said on the forums, Mole is a spoiled brat, and we made him that way. And, because he was our only dog for a long time. And
he's not as spoiled as you think, though.
I know, he's adapting. And the first day he seemed a bit freaked out, which freaked me out. And, of course, he's going to be freaked out, someone else in his territory. And he's very protective, so, he didn't deal with it well the first day. But then it's been good since then.
They've been fine.
Yeah.
And I took Emmy to work today. So.
Yeah.
Well, we took Emmy and Mole.
And Mole. I took Mole.
Jenna took Mole, I took Emmy. I took Emmy to class, and she was great. She was very easy. She just kind of went around, tried to get everybody better, and then she just kind of plopped on the floor in front of the room and went to sleep, and it was very easy. So, yeah, I think we need to really, I just felt like we needed to do something, and especially when I saw how full that shelter was. So that's what we did.
Yep.
So that was part of we had a week off. That was part of our week off. What about the other part of our week off?
Yeah, the other part of the week, we went to Ithaca. We told you last week that we were going to get tattoos, which we did.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And by the way, can I just tell people out there, if you ever get a tattoo in the ditch, which is like the part on the inside of your arm where your arm bends, I gotta tell you, that shit hurts. Okay, that hurts. There's just no way around it. That hurts. All right, but that doesn't hurt nearly as bad as the opposite side of the ditch, which is like your elbow. Getting tattooed on your elbow and around your elbow, I found that immensely painful. And it was like disgusting. It was all scarred and bruised.
It was gross.
And bloody. It's fine now,
yeah.
But it was really disgusting. So, yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you out there that are thinking about a tattoo, it does hurt, but it's good. So I'm pretty pleased with what I have. An outline on my arm. I look like a coloring book that isn't colored in yet. And my students saw it and they were like, "Can we color it in?" It's like, no, not healed yet. Once it heals, sure, I'll let you color it in. I have no problem with that. I don't know if I want students touching me though.
Yeah, not a good idea, especially since especially since you're not healed yet. There.
That's true, and plus they're germ carriers.
Well, yeah.
So we were in Ithaca for a while. That was pretty cool, and we talk about more of this in our subscriber podcast.
Yeah, but it was just really nice to be somewhere that's vegan friendly. Like, we could go into a restaurant and there were vegan options.
It was cool.
And the waiters were really knowledgeable for the most part about, what we could eat and what we couldn't eat. And it was just nice not to be made to feel like a total outcast.
It was.
So it was just nice. And to be able to eat really good food, because we can't eat around here where we are. So, but it reminded me, though, of, people always say that being a vegetarian or being vegan is going to be more expensive, which is ridiculous, because you go to a restaurant, and what's the cheapest thing on the menu? The vegetable dishes. Especially at this one Thai place we went, it had, like, different categories of like, spices and sauces you could get, and under each spice and sauce combination, it had, you could get with chicken, you get it with beef, you could get it with pork or whatever.
So you can get the dead flesh.
You can get the dead flesh versions, or you can get it with, they had tofu or seitan.
Right.
And, guess which was the cheapest, tofu or seitan, out of all of them, and all the appetizers were cheaper. So I don't understand why people get this sense, especially if all they're exposed to is going out to eat and seeing these kind of dishes, why they would think it would be more expensive. But
I don't know. I guess they base it on the assumption that you're going to go out and buy all of the expensive omnivore substitutes, like all the fake meat and fake cheese and all that. Speaking of which,
oh yeah,
holy shit, I've been meaning to write to Rat and Cat, but I haven't had time. Rat and Cat are the dynamic duo who also rescue dogs, of course, right? They have two dogs who are rescues. But they wrote our theme song, and they're cool, and they sent us a nice package. They sent us a package with Cheesely in it.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you that aren't in the UK, right, I had no idea about what this stuff was. I heard people talk about it, but it is a cheese substitute, a vegan cheese that, to me, is not disgusting, and it tastes like cheese.
Yeah, it was weird. Like,
it was really weird.
We got the cheddar style, and it was like, this can't be fake.
I tried it, and I was like, this is really good. Like, yeah, it was really good.
Like, you could actually just slice a piece off and eat it. Like, any other vegan cheese that we can get here, you cannot do that because it's gross.
It is disgusting. Like, if people say follow your heart is good, and it's okay.
It's okay if you put it on something.
It is, but I generally, I don't know. I don't really miss cheese that much, but when I had this Cheesely stuff, oh my God, it was so good. I had like a little like foodgasm. I was like, oh my God. Like, I couldn't believe how good it was. It was shocking. And so we have to thank Rat and Cat for that.
Yes, thank you. And for the chocolates, which are incredible.
Oh, they
have all such good stuff in the UK.
Why
can't we get that here?
Fair. Damn, man.
The stuff that we do have is pretty decent, but that stuff was just incredible.
It was really good. So we owe them a big thanks for that. And they're just great. They've been great supporters of the show pretty much since the first day.
They have been.
Rat and Cat have been there since very early on, and they're on the forums, and they're just really cool. And I hope that at some point we have a chance to meet them, because I'd really love to meet them both.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And, they're just awesome. And anyway, so Cheesely was really good. What were we talking about before Cheesely? Ithaca. So, I don't know.
Yeah, so we were there. So between the new dog, Emmy, and
3 days in Ithaca.
And then our vacation was blown. And it was like, oh, shit, we have to go back to work.
It really was blown. And that means that I'm further behind on everything than I should be. So if you've written us, we will get back to you, or we'll get there. And it means also that we're behind on voicemails. Usually we have a queue of voicemails, and we process them and edit them. So this week we're not going to have any voicemails.
Yeah, but we did get some good ones. I started listening to them, and so we will play them next week.
We will get to them. We will always get to them. Just don't be, you have to be patient.
Yes.
You can't be impatient. While we were in Ithaca also, though, we, in addition to getting tattooed and eating a lot of really good food, we saw V for Vendetta.
Oh, my God.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. It's an excellent movie.
It was pretty good. It's kind of funny, though, because it puts the audience in the situation of sympathizing with someone who is, quote-unquote, a terrorist. And it has a lot of really interesting kind of allegorical things you can take away from it. Let's put it that way. So I'd recommend that if you go. It's not like a great movie, but it is certainly something that is, I think, quite interesting. And it deals with questions of justice and law and things like that I think are applicable to the kinds of things we're all interested in.
I think so.
Not directly, but it makes you, it's a little thought exercise type thing.
Especially there's a whole message about one person making a difference, because that's the question that vegans always get. How, you know, I'm only one person, how can I make a difference? And this movie kind of shows the domino effect, literally, of
so
that.
tricky.
And so, yeah, go see it.
That's right. So I recommend that.
Yeah.
And anyway, so yeah, when we were in Ithaca, though, we had a chance to watch cable television.
Yeah, we haven't had TV for a while. And when we did watch some shows, we don't watch it with commercials.
Yeah, we never really watch commercials here
Yeah.
because we've got TiVo.
Yeah, so we were watching, and I was just amazed. I was struck watching commercials mostly.
Not vegan.
Exactly. By how not vegan television is.
That's
like,
right.
No wonder people get these ideas about what the norm is if they're being blasted with it constantly.
It really
you know?
is. It really is overwhelming, too.
But I was struck by, well, I know a lot of you people, and this is old news to most people, but I finally saw the Happy Cow commercial for California Dairy, and I was like, disgusted by that, so I'm sure most of you have seen that one already. But also, I was struck by the commercials that sort of promoted bad behavior, and then, let's just fix it with a little drug. Let's not change the behavior, but let's do a quick little fix.
Well, isn't this what America is all about, right? It's like, do whatever the fuck you want and get a pill to fix it.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're like this one commercial with these really kind of obese guys sitting at a diner eating all this horrendously fatty food, and of course it's a heartburn commercial.
Of course.
Or this other commercial where this guy's about to eat this humongously overflowing burrito, and his family's like, no, because they know he's going to get heartburn.
Oh, right, the one where he's in the airport?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah, and so it's all about like, eat like shit, and then, here, just take this magic pill and it'll get rid of your heartburn.
Yep.
Whereas, they don't tell you whether if you actually eat well, you don't get heartburn.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, there was a yogurt commercial too, wasn't there?
Yeah.
What was that one
disgusting. Well, it was okay. So it was for Dannon, when the little yogurt, like
Danone.
Activa or something like that. And there's this woman sitting there, and she's like kind of holding her hand on her stomach, and she's got like these sort of half-eaten plates of food in front of her. And
I have to fart.
more or less. This other woman walks in and is like, "Hey, let's go out tonight." And she's like, "No, I feel bloated and irregular."
Bloated and irregular.
Yeah. So, and she's like, "Well, no wonder it's a stressful time of the semester. Look at how we eat." And there's the half-eaten shitty food there on the table.
That's right.
And she's like, "Well, why aren't you feeling horrible?" And the other one's because I eat Dannon yogurts and it's got live cultures. And like that's the magic thing that's going to make you feel well. Don't not eat like shit, but here, just take this little Dannon yogurt and you won't feel like shit.
I drink Busch Light and eat Dannon yogurt. It's
right,
like,
I know.
Yeah.
It just amazes me.
Not feeling bloated and irregular.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. I'm like, I'm like,
I'm sure you're
I don't
fun at
have
a
that
party.
problem. Yeah. I remind him like, I'm vegan and I poop 3 times a day minimum.
There you go. We actually have that sticker right over our toilet paper in the bathroom.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
it's crazy.
It's baffling, and it's just like. The other commercial I saw that drove me nuts was the one like Arby's now with real chicken. It's like they're advertising that their chicken is now real, and I was watching. I was like, what was your chicken before? It's like now with real chicken, And I think what they're trying to imply is that they've gotten rid of all the fillers in the chicken.
Oh, great!
So now they have real chicken.
Real
breast.
chicken.
And TV is just really so
not vegan,
and it's so frustrating
It
because
is.
you see burgers, you see chicken, you see these constant messages of eat, consume, exploit, and it's all related to animal consumption. It's all related to dairy and milk, and this is where all the money's at, and it's so frustrating.
And not to mention gross, like the pictures they put up of all this food, and they're like supposedly look appetizing and enticing and all that, but I'm just like, ugh. Usually like steak smothered in butter and cheese. I'm like, oh my god.
And the other thing that I think you brought up that's really interesting though is that there's this assumption that technology will solve all of our problems. Heartburn, don't worry about eating well, just take a pill. And you ever notice though that most of the drugs that are developed are for like old white guys? What is Viagra? Okay, old white men who can't get it up, right? Cholesterol medicine, mostly old white guys. All these drugs tend to really focus on that kind of thing, on these diseases, and that's because it's a profitable place to do drug research and investment. So.
Yeah, if you actually get rid of the problem, then you wouldn't make all this money selling drugs.
Well, exactly, right? Why focus on prevention when we can support $1 billion industry that multi-billion-dollar industry that will produce solutions for us.
Mm-hmm.
The solutions may kill us,
Mm-hmm.
but hey, whatever.
Speaking of which, that leads right into that article.
Exactly. There was this article in the New York Times on the 27th of March 27th, and it said cloning may lead to healthy pork. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then, this just blows my mind. Okay. A group of university researchers said yesterday that they had created what sounds like a nutritional holy grail. Clone pigs that make their own omega-3 fatty acids, potentially leading to bacon and pork chops that might help your heart. And I gotta just say, omega-3s, I'm so tired of hearing people like, where do you get your omega-3s as a vegan? I'm like, flaxseed. I don't think about omega-3s, you know? Like, I just eat a bunch of stuff. I don't... Okay, anyway. For now, the benefits of the research are theoretical. Omega-3 fatty acids, which have been linked to a lowered incidence of heart disease, are primarily found in fish. No one knows whether they would have the same effect if eaten in pork. Let's see. So it depends upon cloning, and it says, although close to a dozen animals have been cloned in the decades since Dolly the sheep, using cloning to change the nutritional value of farm animals is groundbreaking. Alexander Leaf, an emeritus professor of clinical medicine at Harvard, said he was confident that pork and other foods with omega-3s would eventually get to American consumers and that they would be the better for it. People can continue to eat their junk food, Dr. Leaf said. You won't have to change your diet, but you will be getting what you need. So there you go.
There you go.
You don't have to change a damn thing. You can keep eating your pork chops and all the other crap, and you'll get what you need. For years, people have been urged to eat fish rich in omega-3 fatty acids, but fish can be expensive. Not everyone likes it, and omega-3s are in greatest abundance in oily fish like tuna, which contains mercury. That's because we fucked the ocean up, too, with our shitty technology and all that stuff. Yeah, a very technical term there. Okay. That nutritional conundrum led a group of scientists from Harvard Medical School, the University of Missouri, and the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center to think of modifying pigs. What resulted was five white piglets with muscle tissue larded with omega-3 fatty acids. They live at the University of Missouri in individual pens with fiberglass railed sides, concrete floors, and black foam pads for beds. So they're basically prisoners. And it says pigs with their own omega-3 fatty acids exist in nature, notably a Spanish breed called Iberico. And if you ever go to Spain, this is, of course, one of the more expensive versions of jamon that you can buy.
And where you can find it hanging, their entire leg of ham hanging from the ceiling of your local bar.
Including the little trotter.
Yeah.
Okay, so they go on to say that the FDA has not yet approved any genetically modified animals for food. And they go into to talk about kind of the background. And they talked to this one doctor who was involved. And he said, Dr. Kang said work began a few years ago when he put a gene for the production of omega-3 fatty acids into mice. Mammals do not have that gene. It is found instead in microorganisms, plankton, algae, and worms, he said. Fish get the fatty acids by eating algae. Dr. Kang used a gene from roundworms that converts an abundant form of fatty acid, omega-6, to omega-3. He had to modify the worm enzyme, making it into one that would function in mammals. Then he injected the gene for the enzyme into mouse embryos, some of which took it up, yielding mice that made their own omega-3s. In a paper that is being readied for publication, he says that these mice are protected from a variety of chronic illnesses, presumably because they make their own fatty acids. The next step was to create pigs with the enzyme. That work was done by Randall S. Prather, a pig cloning expert at the University of Missouri. Now imagine having that on your CV, you know? Pig cloning expert! It sounds like some really shitty thing from the future. Anyway, who used genetically modified pig cells to create 5 cloned pigs that had the gene in every cell of their bodies and made their own omega-3 fatty acids in their muscles. Although pigs have been cloned before, along with a growing list of animals including sheep, mice, rats, cows, goats, rabbits, cats. Did I already say cats? Oh, cows. Cows, goats, rabbits, cats, a mule, a horse, and a dog. These are the first livestock to be cloned and genetically modified to make omega-3s. Dr. Prather said that the omega-3 pigs born in November will be bred when they reach puberty. Then he said we will distribute them to researchers who are interested. Pigs are often used to study heart disease, and the cloned pigs offer a new opportunity, Dr. Prather said. Instead of comparing human populations who happen to eat or not eat foods with abundant omega-3, scientists can ask their question directly. Compared with pigs without the omega-3 fatty acids, do these cloned pigs have a reduced heart attack risk, or do they not? So
That article just disgusted me when I read it.
Tell me
Well,
more.
for like numerous reasons. But first of all, okay, so they wanted to clone pigs because people didn't like fish, and that's the source of omega-3, so let's put omega-3s into pork. Now, anywhere in this article does it mention that you can get omega-3s from, plants.
Well, why would you eat a plant? They're not tasty, goddamn.
Oh my god. Rather than like maybe adding flax oil to products like bread or soy milk, like we can
Grind
get
up some flaxseed, you lazy shits.
Yeah, and put it on your cereal, put it on your yogurt, put it on whatever it is you're eating, and you get your omega-3s.
For
Isn't
real.
that a lot easier than cloning a pig? Don't you think?
Dude, but come on, man. Like, cloning a pig is so cool. Like, scientifically. Like,
Yeah,
oh my god.
I know.
You do. Come on. You know these guys are just sitting around like,
I know, like the mad scientists.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I still can't believe. I mean, they didn't even mention plants anywhere in that article. Like, heaven forbid, you should actually get something from a plant. And the fish don't even produce it naturally. They get it from eating algae.
Well, there you go.
And somewhere else, didn't they mention that article that they're worried about? Well, are the omega-3s going to have any benefit because they still have cholesterol and saturated fat in pork. And what they fail to mention is that fish also has cholesterol and
Mercury.
saturated fat and mercury. I mean, it's no better. Fish,
It's like,
I mean, hello.
Hello, people. If you've taken biology, there's like bio motherfucking accumulation. Okay.
Yep.
I just feel like I'm gonna pop.
I
Stuff
know.
makes me so angry.
know.
It's like you overlook the obvious.
I know.
And it drives Bob crazy.
Yeah, so they would never consider doing all this. For example, okay, they have no problem messing with pigs. They got mice to produce their own omega-3s, right?
Mm-hmm.
They got pigs produce their own omega-3s. Why don't they do it to humans? If we produce our own omega-3s, wouldn't that solve a lot of the problem?
Well, there you go. Just breed us.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you clone people?
Well, they're trying.
Because it's unethical
Well,
for most people.
yeah.
It's unethical. Why they can't think it's unethical to do this to pigs and to mice? I don't know. It's
Well, I
disgusting.
mean, look. The truth of the matter is that we don't in the U.S. right. If small brown people, we don't care. So we probably would clone small brown people.
True.
I mean, God knows we bomb them everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Use them for drug testing.
We use them for drug testing. I mean, it's wouldn't surprise me. We have used humans before for experiments.
Mm-hmm.
We've infected people consciously with syphilis. The United States government has flown over portions of the Midwest and dropped radiation on people in the 1950s. Wouldn't surprise me if we also used humans as well. So
This is true.
I don't know, but the whole thing is absurd because it just seems like you're overlooking the obvious solutions to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Which means, why do you have to breed pigs? Why do you have to do all this stuff? Put animals through all this? It's just ridiculous to me. And speaking of the New York Times, though, there's one thing we didn't mention.
Oh, yes.
We were actually mentioned in the New York Times.
I know.
And no one said anything bad about us. It was great. And we were mentioned in an article along with, like, Martha Stewart Living Radio.
I know.
It's, like, weird. They were talking about chicken, though.
Well, yeah.
So.
The whole rest of the article is very not vegan.
Yeah, the article was on the 22nd, and thanks to those of you that alerted us to this.
Yes.
Because a
thank you.
couple
Shoot,
listeners.
I forgot to write down their name. I'm sorry.
Well, we can
Couple of
shout
our
out to them
listeners.
next
Yes,
week.
okay.
A couple listeners wrote to us to let us know about this, and it was just the article is called "The Sizzle and Pop of Radio Cooking," and it was in the 22nd, and it was in the dining, I think, or health section. I can't remember
Dining
which.
section.
Dining.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, health was the one I just read.
Mm-hmm.
This is in the dining section. So the basic gist is really talking about different kinds of radio shows and things like that, and it talks about the different kinds of things out there. And it says, food broadcasting is more democratic than ever. At the top of the market is the polished work of the Kitchen Sisters, a pair of Bay Area women whose National Public Radio series Hidden Kitchens this year became the first piece of food journalism to win a DuPont Columbia Award, widely considered the Pulitzer Prize of broadcast journalism. I'll be waiting for one of those. Thank you very much. Whoever receives that award, you have to send one to us. P.O. Box 276, Colton, New York, 13665. No, anyway. So at the bottom, well, okay, they do call us the bottom. Okay. At the bottom, with a bullet, are hundreds of food podcasters whose ranks have been growing in number and quality almost daily. Since the summer of 2005, when Apple first first offered an organized way for people to file and find podcasts, the company's list of free food-related shows to which listeners can subscribe has grown to more than 300. And it goes on to talk about some of the different shows that are out there. And then it says, amateur food podcasters are filling computers with the practical, the boring, the delightful, and the strange. Now, I don't know which of those it thinks we are.
I have a feeling we're under the strange category.
Hopefully we're not boring.
I hope not either.
Anyway, it says, shows range from the dull but smartly organized wine for newbies to the political rants of the vegan freaks. Hey.
Hey, they didn't insult us.
That's actually true. They
didn't call us
insult-
boring,
This
like the
is-
other podcasts that they mentioned.
It's great. It's the first time I've been in a national publication and not insulted.
Yeah,
So-
this is good.
Yeah. So that was kind of fun. What's that about?
Indeed. Nothing.
Oh, were you making a little gesture?
No.
Oh,
Nothing.
okay. So it was cool to see that.
Yeah, that was very cool. And I was very surprised. I never would have caught that if it hadn't been for our listeners. So thank you for sending that in. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And it was a nice little plug. So whoever did that from the New York Times, if you're listening, thank you very much.
Yeah,
we
thanks.
appreciate it. The author of the article is Kim Severson.
Cool.
So Kim, if you're listening, thanks. We appreciate it. And she must have listened to the show because
Yeah.
we do political rants.
Yeah, she wouldn't have known otherwise.
Yep.
So, yeah, cool. Thanks.
And she still decided to talk about us.
I
which is
know.
funny. So, one more news piece, I think. We
Yeah.
don't usually do news, but sometimes there's stuff that we just
Well,
can't.
lately we have been, because there's been a lot of interesting stuff in the news.
True. If there's stuff that's good, we aren't going to run from it.
Right.
I really like this one. I found this one on our forums.
Drunkard kills himself over meatless dinner. A jobless alcoholic burned himself to death after his wife refused to serve him meat for dinner, Indian police said Sunday. 60-year-old, now this is why you gave it to me.
Okay, I'll try it. What the hell? 60-year-old Mithalal Ram Sanjeevan?
Yeah.
Mithalal Ram Sanjeevan?
Yes, that sounds pretty good.
Okay, I don't know.
There were a lot of vowels in there.
Someone can,
Yeah.
I'm sure someone will call and say, no, it is something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sanjivan. The first name is what threw me there. Okay. Anyway, he doused his body with an inflammable liquid and set himself ablaze outside his one-room house in Ahmedabad, the main city of western Gujarat state. Police said the victim, who had been without a job for years, and his wife, Geeta Sanjivan, 54, had a scuffle over the dinner menu. The wife refused to cook meat as they could not afford it. Irritated by this, Sanjivan locked her in the house before setting himself on fire outside. Now, that's definitely the worst reaction I've ever seen to someone not offering meat at dinner.
It really is. Wow. Another podcast we listen to does insensitive reenactments, and I keep thinking it'd be fun to do an insensitive reenactment.
Oh, that's
but
horrible.
I won't do that. That's mean.
Yeah,
I
so-
just look for humor in everyday things.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think it's a little extreme, that one. Yeah.
It is quite extreme.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the guy must have had some other reason. You know, he's a drunk, and he's probably frustrated, and he probably just thought, this is the last straw.
I guess.
Who the hell knows?
I don't know.
I don't know either. So where are we at now?
Crazy. I think it's about time for our emails.
Email.
You've got mail.
Okay, let's see here. Cialis? No, don't need that. Bigger bus size? No. Free iPod? Oh, might do that. Oh, are you pleasing your woman? Well, you better ask her. Oh, well, what's this? Vegan freak email? Vegan freak email. Yes.
I like the little yes. So we got a bunch of emails. My
We
God.
do. We don't have voicemails this week, but we do have a ton of emails.
Yeah.
So, and some of them are from last week or a couple weeks ago. So we're catching up. We're getting there. Anyway,
We always do catch
up. The first one is from Colleen. Says, I have been a listener for about 4 months and still do a little jig when your podcast downloads to my iBook every Tuesday.
Sweet.
Aw, thanks. You provide me with education and vegan inspiration on a weekly basis. Thank you and happy 30th. Well, thank you very much. This might not have a place on your show, but the main freakdom I encounter as vegan is the health aspect. I lost a good amount of weight when I went vegan, did it cold turkey, and incorporated an exercise program at the same time. I'm not underweight, but I am on the low side of the scale now. But I'm healthy and feel incredible. The best I've ever felt in my life. The problem is I constantly get the, are you okay? Are you sick? Stick from family and friends who knew me as a heavier person. It's having very negative effect on being vegan. Being a vegan disciple. Everyone blames my diet and the movement/lifestyle in general as the reason is why I'm now suddenly a quote-unquote freak. I'm not helping the cause, that's for sure. So my question is, how do you dialogue with someone about the healthy aspects of veganism? I'm finding this extremely difficult. It's hard to read because our printer went on the fritz there for a second.
Yeah, there's a line through
There's a
all
line
the junk.
through my, yeah. Anyway, American obesity is the norm now, and being thin is being presented to me as unhealthy. I have tried the healthy heart angle, but I seem to fail on a regular basis because the person I'm explaining myself to is, one, overweight themselves and see nothing wrong along with their McDonald's drive-through habits, or two, believes that if you change your lifestyle that dramatically, you have a mental problem.
You must have anorexia.
Exactly. I've been told I have an eating disorder, that I am falling for a cult movement, and my favorite, that if I just visit a shrink and get a prescription, I would leave this quote-unquote silly vegan nonsense behind me.
That's great. You get a prescription.
Yeah.
Take a pill.
Take a pill.
Don't
See,
become
there
vegan.
you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you ever feel burning need to address this on the air, I would be very interested to hear your thoughts.
Wow. Well, it sounds to me like one of the real problems. I mean, I understand your desire to want to dialogue with people about the health aspects of it. That's a really good approach. But it sounds to me like people are just the people that you're trying to talk to about it just really are at a point where they aren't ready to actually talk to you about veganism at all because they think it is so weird, so far out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, what do you do with someone like that? You know, it's really tough to approach a person like that and to deal with it. One of the things, though, that was good for me is that my doctor said, told me that being vegan was good.
Mm-hmm.
She said, it's great that you're vegan and, you need to make sure you eat enough whole grains and things like that. But it's excellent that you're vegan and you should keep doing it. It's good for your health. And when I get challenged on the health stuff, I say, look, my doctor told me veganism was good for me. And that usually shuts people up.
Yeah, there you go.
So even if it's true or not, you can always say that.
You could say Bob's doctor said it was good for you.
Yeah. This freaky guy I listen to on the radio who curses too much, yeah, he told me to tell you to fuck off. No, so my doctor told me it was good for me, and that one works pretty well. I mean, the other thing is, if people are used to you having been a heavier person and now you're a thinner person, it may be difficult for you to recover your aspect of health in their eyes. But more often than not, people look at me as a vegan, and I'm not overweight, I'm not underweight, I'm like right where I should be pretty much. And, like my students, for example, look, they say, wow, we've never really met a vegan before. We always assumed it was someone healthy, but we look at you go do stuff, you have an active life, you don't, knock on wood, get sick all that often. And, it's cool because it shows us that you can be a happy, healthy vegan. So one of the best ways to do it is, I think, to live your life as a happy, healthy vegan and to kind of prove through that you are stable, that you are healthy, that you're happy, that you enjoy the life that you're living. And sometimes trying to fight these battles is self-defeating almost, because it lets people see that they try to make you miserable so that they can live up to all these expectations in their head that being vegan is a miserable state of being.
Exactly.
They try to make you miserable so that they can prove themselves right.
Yeah.
But if you can just constantly keep coming back to them like, well, I'm happy, I'm great, I've never been
I feel
better.
wonderful. And you seem to think that you're not being a good ambassador for veganism, but you really are. I mean, people all of a sudden, people know that thinner is healthy. I mean, people know this, and even though they're telling you it's not, I think they're just using that as an excuse suddenly because you're vegan and all of a sudden you're healthy. Well, then you must be unhealthy, because they want to find, like Bob just said, they want to find that one thing that will prove them right, that you're being miserable, that you're unhealthy, that, oh my God, you're so much thinner than you used to be, so you must be, you must have gotten sick.
The other thing that's really funny though is that the whole thing, like, you joined a cult.
I know.
It's not, it's not a cult. It's like, maybe you don't even know any other vegans. I mean, to be in a cult, you have to know other people in the cult usually, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That whole thing strikes me as odd. I mean, there are a set of tenets that you follow, but being a vegan is no more a cult than being a meat eater. I mean, you buy into a meat eating ideology, as we talked about on the show a couple weeks ago with Melanie Joy. You buy into a vegetarian or vegan ideology.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I wish you luck with that, though. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I think just to say people, well, I'm happy, I feel great, and my doctor says it's healthy. Hopefully, they'll eventually get the message.
Yeah, I think that's it. If you tell them, hey, my doctor said this is good for me, people usually leave you alone. Mm-hmm. Or I'm doing it from. I don't like to only use the health reasons for veganism, but I think I'm doing this for my health. People usually look at you, they leave you be. I think, not always apparently in your case, but. I don't know. And it's tough when you're confronting people who are living the SAD, right? The standard American diet, because they're very wedded to what they're consuming, and it's tough. But there's a way to get by it.
Yep.
I think the easiest way is just to live your life happily, and to try to let those things kind of fade by if you can, because that that's probably the best revenge is living well.
Definitely.
So, right, let's move on. Okay. This one is from Claire, who is one of our younger listeners. We think you should be 18 if you're going to listen to the show, because we curse. But if you're not, well, we can't stop you. And, I'm convinced that our younger listeners and folks on the forums would really have their shit together.
They do. It's amazing.
In ways I never did when I was young. Because I was kind of a fuck up. Not real bad, but moderately so. Anyway, Claire says, "Hey Bob and Jenna, lately I've been thinking a lot about the issue of people who won't worry about animal oppression until no humans are oppressed. Many great points have been brought up on both the podcast and the forums, but no one has yet mentioned the one that seems the most obvious to me. The ways that animal agriculture harms the people who are most directly involved with it, its workers. Workers involved in the production of meat, dairy, and eggs are certainly human and certainly oppressed. You've had many examples of this before on the podcast. The low wages, physically and morally challenging tasks, high injury rates, and lack of health care, even death. Drowning in cow shit seems pretty oppressive to me. If someone's supporting an industry that treats both its human and animal components so cruelly, they're lying to themselves if they think they're doing anything for the human liberation they claim to care so much about. If they honestly valued human liberation, they would stop supporting animal agriculture and go vegan. You guys fucking rock, Claire."
That's an awesome
Brilliant.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I know. When I was her age, I never would have come up with something like that.
Me neither. Me neither.
Yeah.
But she's absolutely right.
Yeah, exactly.
The system itself is one that is oppressive not only in animals, but to people too.
Mm-hmm.
And what a great insight. So thanks for that, Claire.
Yeah, that's awesome. Exactly. Cool. Our next email comes from Renee, who says, "I was turned on to your show by someone bitching and moaning about your language on a message board." Okay.
Yay.
Yay. I thought, ooh, vegans who cuss as much as me. Hook me up. Well, glad you like it. I've been listening for a couple months. Thank you for calling attention to the human cost involved in the meat, dairy, and animal apparel industries. This is a major issue for me. If we think it's all right to exploit animals, we continue to think it's even better to exploit minorities. Connecting to Claire's email here. Conflating the two isn't hard for most Americans. I've got my girlfriend on board with this issue, and I doubt she can be 100% vegan, but she's cutting way back on dairy and eggs. Woo! I especially like to look at this as a feminist issue, which is something Jenna drew my attention to through the PETA Got Milk ads. Yep, exploiting cows for consumption and women for consumption are basically the same thing. We all come at veganism from different directions. For me, I hate to see animals exploited, but the human cost, physically and psychologically, is too great to ignore. Thanks for the great shows and the great food for thought, which is all vegan.
Nice. And by the way, you have to read Carol Adams if you're interested in the feminist angle. The sexual politics of meat, the pornography of meat. She has another anthology, I think, that's called Animals and Women. I think that's what it's called. It's pretty good.
Nice.
There are a number of books out there that are really worth checking out from Carol Adams if you're interested in analysis that looks at kind of a feminist perspective on meat eating and vegetarianism. And Carol Adams has some very compelling reasons that if you're a feminist and you care about oppression and you're interested in moving the cause against oppression forward, that you should not consume meat.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that.
Indeed.
And good luck converting the girlfriend.
Yes, indeed.
It's don't you know if you convert somebody to veganism, you get a toaster? We keep joking that next year I think we're going to actually buy a couple cheap toasters and give them away as a kind of, that'd be funny.
That would be funny.
Put a little vegan freak logo on them or something. Like, the prize for converting a vegan. So I don't know. I want my toaster though. Damn it. Okay. Our next email is from Maddie. And Maddie says, "So I get up at 4 a.m. to stock the shelves of Trader Joe's, unloading the truck of perishables we get every morning. Let me tell you, this event has become so rad since I get to do it listening to your podcast while doing it. All right. We're happy to be part of your rad 4 a.m. 4 a.m.
That's ungodly hour.
Yeah, that's just not right.
Yeah.
Unless you're partying, 4 a.m. is not good.
No.
So anyway, we're happy to be rad for you, but 4 a.m. sucks ass.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to one every morning. I just found you, so I'm getting myself up to speed, and it's totally killer way to start my often very long days. I haven't been able to fork out the dough for your book yet, but I certainly look forward to it. Well, I, hope you can fork out the dough for it or find a library that has it.
Indeed, yeah.
Libraries are revenue-stealing schemes. I'm surprised the publishing industry hasn't said that yet. I don't really think that, by the way. I'm happy for libraries. Anyway, she said, on a side note, you two give me hope that someday I will find my vegan beau. As much as I've liked the omnis I've dated since going vegan, I still can't really enjoy eating with them, whether it's because they're choking down my vegan fixings or I'm watching them gobble meat and or guzzle milk when we eat out. You guys rock my tofu for sure. I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you and your pot and your pets. Highest regards, Maddie on the West Coast. So thanks, Maddie.
Yeah, thanks. It was awesome.
And, hang in there. I mean, I'm sure you could find somebody who's vegan, especially on the West Coast.
Yeah.
It's not like you're in, South Dakota.
True.
Or like triskaidekaphobia in Idaho.
Yeah.
It could be tough in those places.
Indeed.
But on the coast, you have a pretty good shot.
Mm-hmm.
Not that in the middle you don't, but
Or
depends
you
on
can
where you
find
are.
an Omni who's open-minded.
That's exactly right.
It's entirely possible.
It is. And I think actually in the book that's coming out from Tofu Hound Press very shortly, Dispatches from Hell.
Mm-hmm.
The vegan guide to love, dating, sex, and relationships, all other stuff, right? I don't always get the title kind of messed up. But that book talks about this very issue of, okay, do you date an Omni or not, right? And if you do, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
So it deals with this question. But I think the book raises the point that it's possible to find someone who is an omnivore that shares many of your values. And if that person shares many of your values, the chances are good that they will consider your values, be considerate of them. Maybe not go to vegan, but at least be considerate of it. And or maybe go vegan if they think about where you're coming from. So.
Indeed.
All right.
Okay. One more.
Okay.
One more. This one's from Joanna. She's a new subscriber, so thank you. I would like to add, as an older mom of 2 girls and veggie gone vegan as of last November, thank you for an entertaining, educational, and thought-filled podcast. I've also bought your book and hope to read it between dropping off, picking up my kindergartner, and caring for my 15-month-old. Wow, that's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work.
Yeah. I'm an old ex-leather wearing punk rock bassist, now retired, changed forever because people like you take a stand on caring for animals. Thank you.
Cool.
Awesome. I have a question for you. I'm trying to raise my 15-month-old vegan. Here is my problem. She weaned very early, 3 months, and is diagnosed with a soy and dairy allergy.
Oy.
Ugh. Her formula is dairy-based, but she tolerates it. Our pediatrician has said, other than that, no dairy and no soy. I don't give her any meat or any other dairy than the formula. That we can't help you with, I don't think. But there are people on our forums who could.
That's right. We have
and
a little
our
vegan parenting section.
Listeners out there who are parents, maybe you can help.
Yeah, and soy isn't the be-all and end-all of veganism, right?
No, it's not.
I personally consume a bit of soy. I drink soy milk in the morning with my cereal or in my coffee. Right. And we have tofu every so often. But beyond that, I don't eat a whole lot of soy that I'm conscious of.
Right.
I know. I'm sure there's tiny bits of soy in a lot of stuff, but there are always glutens and all that stuff. Right? Seitan.
Yeah. Oh, that was the next part of her question.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
No. Could you or any listener help me with info on seitan, how to buy, prepare, etc.? Dino, please help. Well, since it's kind of an Omni sub, Dino might not be too interested in helping, but we could ask him.
Dino has some issues with things that are meant to replace meat, although I don't think seitan, if you look at where seitan comes from, I don't think it really has as its roots it is used often as an omnivore substitute for meat, but it isn't just that, right? I mean,
no, not at all.
I think from what it really has, it has an Asian history, right? So, or an Asian background. So, I don't really know, but I like seitan a lot, actually.
Yeah, we cook it a lot.
We do. We eat it a couple times a week, probably.
Foods, yeah.
And one of the things we do with it a lot is we'll just throw it in some kind of Chinese-ish stir fry. Another thing I like to do with it is kind of cut it into strips. And what I'll do is fry up some onions and some bell pepper, and at pretty high temperature. And then I'll throw in some seitan and brown that. Then I throw in some garlic. And then I add a little bit of, it sounds weird, but it works, just a little bit of soy sauce, just to kind of give everything a little bit of kind of liquidy flair. And then I usually crack pepper over the whole thing. And this makes really good kind of vegan fajitas, right? This kind of fills my fajita fix I had when I became vegetarian. So I came up with this one a while ago. So you serve that on some tortillas with some salsa, and that's one really good way to fix seitan, I think. You can make you just make a beef stew and substitute the beef for seitan, and instead of browning the beef, you brown the seitan and use stock, because usually the beef would provide the beef fat. This is disgusting. Would provide a flavor in the stock, but you can just use veggie stock and make a seitan stew. Yeah,
with some potatoes and carrots and celery and onions, and it's pretty simple.
Yeah, just thicken it with a little bit of flour. Quarter cup or so of flour.
We've done that before.
A couple tablespoons, I guess, of flour.
Yeah, and it turns out really well.
It does. And some browning sauce is good usually. That's just soy, really concentrated soy sauce, really, anyway.
Yeah.
What else do we do with seitan?
Well, we mostly, like you said, we use it in Chinese dishes. You can you substitute it for any, meat, and we add broccoli and a whole bunch of spices and any kind of veggies you have laying around. Just throw it all together.
Yep.
You can also, if you slice it real thin, put it on sandwiches.
Oh yeah, that's true. In Ithaca, they make a really nice seitan, Suzy seitan, which comes sliced very thin, and it's excellent on sandwiches.
You can make like fillets or cutlets out of it too, kind of thing.
That's true.
So you can just serve it, like you would like a piece of meat, really. I mean, we've used recipes before, like in Candle Cafe cookbook. There's one for a nice sauce you can put over it. There are other cookbooks we've had. You would marinate it with like a jerk sauce.
Marinate it with a jerk.
Marinate it with a jerk. So there's an amazing amount of things that you can do with it.
Yeah, it really is a quite versatile thing.
Yeah.
And there are lots of recipes in the various cookbooks out there, so they're worth checking out. I don't know. Does La Dolce Vegan have anything?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But there are tons of recipes in the various cookbooks. I mean, just take a peek out there and look around and see what's cooking.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like the seitan way of. I like the fajita way of doing it. I like to do it in stew. I like to do it in Chinese food. There are tons of ways though. It's only limited by your imagination.
Oh, we've even used it in like a pasta dish.
Oh yeah, we have.
With like we got this off of the Eat Air blog. That's it. Thank
There
you
you
for
go.
Crispy, who's on our forums. He had a great recipe for like broccoli and seitan and gnocchi and red wine and capers and olives, and
That's good.
you sort of throw
It's
it all
really
together.
good.
It was really tasty.
Yeah, if you can buy some store-bought vacuum gnocchi, it's really quite nice.
Yes.
So anyway, we're stealing a Dino segment here. Or actually, I think we're going to have Sarah Kramer on the show soon too.
Yeah.
So we can ask her too if we remember.
Okay.
So cool. Are we done with the emails though?
I think that's it.
All right, cool.
Drop the phone, it'll save you a tenner. Send an email to Bob and Jenna.
It probably doesn't cost a tenner to call us, do you think?
I hope not.
I mean, she says drop the phone, it'll save you a tenner. Send an email to Bob and Jenna.
Yeah.
So maybe it costs a tenner. I don't know. Depends where you're calling from.
It does depend on where you're calling from.
Ay. So, all right.
Cool.
Now, what we have for you is an interview.
First, we have a song.
Oh, don't! Stupid
We need a little
Bob.
break here. We need a little musical segment.
An interlude.
An interlude.
An interlude. Okay, this song is from Demo, who sent a couple of songs a couple weeks ago, as you may recall. And this one is called Electrodes, and it's by Nausea. And the lyrics are really good. A couple little things here and there. It says, let's see. Look into their eyes. What do you see? I see fear, innocence, and agony. Look at their souls. What do you see? Punishment without criminality. Look into their minds. What do you see? Why the fuck are you doing this to me? Look at their flesh. What do you see? The blood of needless pain from your insanity. Unseen they suffer. Unheard they cry. In agony they linger. In loneliness they die. Look at yourself. What do you see? The bastard who inflicted pain on me. So it goes on from there. And pretty solid lyrics, solid song, and we want to thank Demo for sending that. And here's Electrodes by Nausea.
Look at your eyes, do you see? Look at the flesh, do you see? Look into the mind, do you see? severe deformity because thalidomide, a sedative prescribed to pregnant women, was found safe after extensive animal testing. Now non-animal tests show that thalidomide is dangerous to the development of the fetus. Recently, ethanol and other drugs have caused serious side effects and death in humans. How can this be true? Giant filled difference such as what happened on you. Animal torture, how can this exist? A ground with no law to give us vaccine.
All right. So?
That was Electrodes by Nausea.
Indeed. And a pretty intense song. And a very strong statement against animal testing.
Indeed.
What else would you expect to hear on Vegan Freak Radio?
Yeah.
Would you expect us to say, animal testing is good? Yeah, right. So, okay.
All right, now we have our interview.
Oh. I screwed up.
It's okay.
Bob sucks.
Yes, this week we have a really interesting interview with Jenny Brown, who is one of the founders and director of the Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary.
You know, she has a really interesting history that led up to her doing the Farm Animal Sanctuary.
Yeah, and there's apparently a lot of excitement about the sanctuary because it's is basically new, more or less. And they've been helping out some of the other sanctuaries that have closed down, unfortunately. And, you know, they're trying to get set up, they're trying to raise some money, and they're doing a lot of great work down in the Catskills.
Indeed. And aren't they having a cocktail fundraiser?
They are. At the end of the interview, we give information, but we're also going to put up information on our website about the cocktail fundraiser. If you're in the New York City area
and you want to help,
you can go drink for a good cause.
You can go drink for a good cause. How can this be wrong?
Yeah, really. Because a portion of the bar tab goes to help the sanctuary. So how can it get better than that?
And our straight edge friends can go drink Coke.
Indeed.
Well, Coke is like nasty. Go drink
seltzer water.
Yeah, something you have to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So we'll just let that roll, and then we'll be back after the interview.
All right, we're here with Jenny Brown, who is the director and co-founder of Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary in Woodstock, New York. And she's here to talk a little bit about her sanctuary and her work with farm animals. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's no problem. Maybe you can just get started by talking a little bit about your sanctuary and how it got started, because it's pretty much brand new, isn't it?
It's brand new. We just bought the property in 2004, and it was a house with a wide open pasture, and it's in a great location. It's 8 miles outside of the center of Woodstock, New York, and it's kind of a hip, progressive community that surrounds us, and people are by and large very welcoming of what it is that we want to do. But we're starting a sanctuary from scratch. We're building it as we're going, and we've just completed our second barn, and we have multiple coops and a run-in for the cows, like a 3-sided shed. But we're doing it the right way. You know, I've spent 10 months at Farm Sanctuary, and sort of when you have that amount of time to spend someplace, I lived and worked there as an animal caregiver, you get to see what works and how, thinking ahead when you're building about installing auto waterers and light panels and what kind of fencing works for what animals. So I went there and got, sort of a crash course in the education of how to do this. And animal husbandry, sans the breeding aspect of it, and we're just starting it anew. But basically we're kind of already at capacity in terms of our animal numbers.
Wow.
Yeah.
And where are you getting your animals from right now?
Well, they come from all different places. They're all rescues from cases of neglect, abuse, abandonment, some factory farmed animals. But the way it's worked for us, and this is sort of interesting, just because of the fact that I worked at Farm Sanctuary for 10 months, there were several other farm animal sanctuaries that had heard that I was leaving there, that I remain good friends of theirs. I get their, I have their support in what it is that I'm doing. The farm sanctuary people. I'm really good friends with Susie Costin, the shelter director there, and was starting my own thing. And people from at least two other sanctuaries, Wilderness Ranch and Umani Sanctuary in Pennsylvania, both caught wind of it and sort of monitored our progress, and basically knowing that we were building the farm from scratch, contacted us because both have sadly in the past year closed. And they basically approached us about, we'll help you out if you help us out. We're folding for various reasons, personal reasons, financial reasons. You know, there's definitely a burnout in this business. Both sanctuaries operated for around 10 to 12 years, and it's exhausting work if you're the director and if you're a larger animal sanctuary. We're only 23 acres, and so I sort of don't like to describe it this way, but it's kind of like a boutique sanctuary in a way, you know. But when both Wilderness Ranch and Umani Sanctuary closed, they approached us. Umani approached us about taking their sheep and goats, because there's a lot of well-formed relationships in these groups, and it's a lot of work placing animals at the right homes and doing site visits and making sure that potential adoptive homes meet a certain criteria. So with all that they have going on in their lives and trying to shut down a sanctuary, which they claim is more work than opening a sanctuary, they contacted us and said, you know, if we raise some money and give you all these things. Well, that actually wasn't even a part of the deal at first. They didn't approach us about taking the goats and sheep until after they congratulated us on how much we've accomplished in such short a period of time, and then they asked later in the game if we could take these animals. And in exchange, they gave us money towards building the barn we just built, and they're giving us all the contents of their education center, which they were able to build on a grant. They're giving us the contents of their medical infirmary, which has like a stainless steel vet table and cabinets and, you know, a huge stainless steel sink and a refrigerator and proper animal scales. They're giving us a tractor, a mini tractor, a horse trailer. I mean, you name it. It's as if we just won some sort of sanctuary lottery. It's huge. And so that's how the sheep and goats came about. So they all come from different rescues, but they came together from Umani, and we have 15 goats. We just introduced one that we already had before they came to them, and 8 sheep. We have 4 cows. One's a young. He's right at about slaughter age, actually, for veal slaughter. He's a veal calf, and he's about 6 months old, and we've just introduced him out to the rest of our steer, who are rescued veal calves. And we have 12 pigs, huge farm pigs. We don't have any pot bellies. And we have turkeys, chickens galore, and a whole coop full of roosters. But to go back for a minute about where the animals came from, the pigs came from Wilderness Ranch, and they actually raised $25,000 to help us build that barn.
Wow, that's wonderful.
So we've gotten really lucky. I mean, we don't want to necessarily. We're not a sanctuary anymore for other sanctuaries to, when they fold or if they're, overextended, to dump their animals here. That's not what we aspire to do. We want to be a part of rescues as well and adoption. But when you think about it, in opening a sanctuary, having animals that are already incredible ambassadors, that have lost their fear of people, that are friendly, that are in good shape, and knowing how expensive rescues can be in terms of the health care, them coming in from bad situations, the health care that's involved in that, the vet bills. Now we're going to be able to open our doors with a representation of every animal that's abused in agribusiness, abused and exploited in agribusiness, and have people, when they come here to visit, feel like a tangible operation, something that they would embrace and be willing to help fund.
So you feel like the importance of, I was going to ask you what you think the importance of sanctuaries, what the importance could be, and I what I'm getting from you is that you think that these animals can act as ambassadors in a sense, right?
Absolutely. And the thing is even if we did decide later on, which I don't foresee us doing, but even if we were just a facility that functioned with keeping the animal residents that we have now and never being a part of a rescue and allowing these particular animals the opportunity to live out the rest of their life here at this safe place, and we did nothing but talk to people on farm tours about the horrible lives that these animals live in factory farms, that's still, I think, an acceptable role. But we do want to save more lives. It's just, I got to tell you, somebody, as I'm sure you are too, somebody that loves animals as much as we do, it's heartbreaking giving them to another home when you feel like it's potentially a home that's not as good as the one that you could provide. You're taking them away from friends that they know and other animals because we see that sentience in animals. And so it's just a really tough decision. I'm constantly justifying this with myself. So I got a little verbal diarrhea in terms all the time of like how to handle adoptions and that sort of thing. It's tough.
No doubt.
Sure. Well, you said you had some experience working at Farm Sanctuary. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about your background and how you decided to do this?
Well, it's an interesting story. I'm 34, and I previously worked in the film and video business. I went to film school in Chicago. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, got a scholarship, went to Chicago to the Columbia Film School there, and began working more in the camera department. I wanted to be a cinematographer, and went through school. And during it was my senior year, and there was a documentary project I had to do. It was basically covering a live event and editing it together, and it's a basic, senior level program. And I covered PETA's annual fur march through the streets of Michigan Avenue, and I had become vegetarian at 18 just simply by picking up some literature and being horrified. And taking a speech class in early college and focusing on animal rights to be my chosen topic to talk about the entire semester, and learning a lot about the issues during that period. You did all these different types of speeches, informational, one where you're supposed to basically, persuade people to do a certain thing or to think a certain way, those kind of speeches, and it really taught me a lot about the issues. Nobody around me was animal rights. I think I had one, militant, feminist, lesbian, vegetarian friend. She was the only one that I knew. But so in film school, I chose this. I was working at the Chicago Diner, the famous vegetarian restaurant that's been around forever, and waiting tables. That was what was paying my rent. And I met this really incredible lady that worked for PETA. Her name was Cam McQueen. And she was there heading up the annual fur march, which is a totally interesting event. It seems like Halloween. It's crazy. They put on these black cloaks and they carry coffins down, the main thoroughfare of the shopping district and what's happening in Chicago. It's Michigan Avenue. And they ring these bells in these black cloaks, carrying these coffins, saying, "Bring out your dead, bring out your dead." And people bring their fur coats out. It's well advertised that you can donate your fur coats that are going to be used to, for needy animals and a variety of other, initiatives. And so this was the event that I chose to cover. And making a long story a little bit shorter, I submitted the tape to PETA because I used it for my school project, and I thought maybe they'd like to have this. And I started a friendship with the woman that worked there, Cam McQueen, who was thrilled that I did this. And then I followed her to the jail because, of course, everybody got arrested, and it's crazy because they set the coats on fire. I think I left that very important part out. They set them on fire, and I covered the event. She contacted me afterwards and asked if I'd be willing to do some undercover work for PETA. And that was scary and really thrilling and felt like something that I could do. Knew that it would be really hard to look at the things I could potentially be looking at, but knew how important it was. Media, film as a medium is important. I mean, to have people see really sort of breaks down those walls of disconnection, And so I went undercover, and, it was initially circus events It was also being an activist and heading up circus protests in the area, trying to get into a laboratory. A lot of times failed attempts, going out and documenting an event, like a protest in front of a fur store or something. They had me do a variety of things. And but the very first thing that they had me do was prove my level of commitment by doing a fairly radical activist deed, first and foremost, which was in Chicago. There was this big advertising award ceremony, and Gillette that year, it was for commercials and whatever, but, corporate videos, but it's advertising. And they had me do this crazy thing where there was a woman who had staked out the place, there was a lawyer, and the three of us had cocktails in the lounge leading up to this big award ceremony there at the hotel. And when the time was right, I was going to go downstairs in the basement and put on this huge rabbit suit. The bunny that had undergone Dre's eye testing, you know what those look like with, the eyes looking like they melt away. You see it sometimes in PETA literature. And when the time was right, we were going to go up to the second floor. We had it all worked out. All the media was outside, a big bunch of activists all outside. This is fancy award ceremony. This is like something that's, they televise. And, probably just for some smaller cable show, but it's televised. And so at a certain time, we all got on the elevator. I got my rabbit suit on. We had one stop to make before we got out on the second floor, and we were just going to storm, the crowd, basically, screaming and chanting, and I had a big sign around my neck that says, that said, "Gillette tortures animals, shame on Gillette." The activists with me had flyers, and then the lawyer was there just to sort of document it's something that PETA does a lot of times just so that they have somebody that's involved from the get-go and actually sees what happens, and can be proactive in dealing with arrest cases. So we stormed the award ceremony, knocked cocktails out of people's hands. I got pushed to the ground and handcuffed and escorted out, screaming and chanting, "Gillette tortures animals, Gillette tortures animals." and it was successful. People were horrified, and there was a lot of security buzzing around because they saw the activists outside, so they were ready for us. They knew that we could have infiltrated, and sure enough we did, and it was great. But the one key thing that happened during this protest was we had to go from the basement level up to the second floor using the staff elevator. And we knew we had one stop to make. We couldn't take the stairs because the stairway was locked on that floor. And we had one stop to make, and we were scared to death that the elevator was actually going to stop. And, my heart's beating out of my chest. I can barely see out of my big rabbit head. And the elevator doors open, and Tony Bennett walks onto the elevator. He was performing that night at this awards ceremony. He's fixing his tie, and he's with another guy, and doesn't even, they step onto the elevator and they don't even know what to think. And he's got this smile on his face, just he thinks it's a cute bunny, and then he realizes no, it's not a cute bunny, it's a scary bunny. and he reads my sign, and basically he just said, "I had no idea," because it said Gillette tortures animals. And then the activist lady that was with me, shoved a brochure in his face, and she's like, "Here, read all about it." That's when the elevator doors busted open, and it was craziness. So that was my introduction into activism. But it was after that, I had jumped ahead before, but it was after that they started, for about a period of a year or something, they flew me around to different places, and I would always meet up with somebody that was an undercover activist, oftentimes whose name I would never really know, and that had been working in different industries or companies and had infiltrated and were documenting things, and then they would bring me in to try to get video footage, and good video footage, that could actually be used to give out to news stations who might want to cover the event, part of a press kit. And the one thing, the one big job that I did for PETA that I'm really proud of was I got into a Premarin barn, and that was right when Premarin was starting to be an issue, and women were learning that they were taking a pill that comes from the piss of pregnant horses, basically, and they were starting a new form of factory farming up in Manitoba, Canada, And in North Dakota, the colder regions, for some reason, horses produce more estrogen in their urine, these pregnant horses. And there was a lot of media going on about it, and animal rights people being opposed to it, and the fact that factory farms were stemming from it. And with this lady, I flew into North Dakota, met her there, and she'd been working there, went to about 6 different places before we were finally able to break into a place and get what PETA claims was the first ever video footage inside of one of these places that hadn't been really well kept, before a news crew was coming in, to show that there wasn't anything wrong with Premarin production. I got into a barn where animals were branded like cattle. Horses were branded on their sides. They were kept in tiny stalls, so small that the more pregnant ones, their bellies were rubbing up against the side of the stalls. All of them with about, 3 feet of excrement under their bottoms. Some of them catheterized, some of them with these bags, urine catch bags, that supposedly would, that were less irritating to the horses than a catheter. But all of them had abrasions between their legs where this thing rubbed. They weren't allowed outside. They were all kept in this barn during the, I think it's like 7 or 8 month period of gestation, and it was horrible. You can hear me crying on the videotape. I was so horrified. But that footage, PETA released that footage, and that showed in Canada and in the UK, in Germany, and in America, and that was a big accomplishment. It's tough stuff to look at, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, definitely. That is really tough.
So how did you move from that forward into starting a sanctuary?
Well, my career took off in film and video, and I moved back to Kentucky for a while. I was working on a lot of commercials and a couple of independent films that came through there. Working a lot as a production coordinator, I learned that cinematography for a lady was actually really hard to break into, and got real discouraged by it. Any kind of technical job and that sort of thing. It's a lot of work. You start out as a loader or second or first or a second AC or first AC assistant cameraman. And it's a long road, and it's actually really hard and tedious and difficult work in a stressful environment on a set. So I ended up doing more producing and administrative stuff, and was living in Louisville, doing pretty well in Louisville, not having to wait tables again, and then moved to Boston because I decided I wanted to work on more intelligent television or film. I wanted to work in a more normal-paced environment, which I thought was television. It ended up not being the case at all. And so moved to Boston, started working on shows like Nova and Frontline, worked for the filmmaker Errol Morris, which is where I met my husband. And this, really was climbing my way up the ladder, from a lowly production assistant all the way up to producing and directing. And the last thing I did was produce and direct a show for Discovery Channel called The Transatlantic Tunnel. It's part of their extreme engineering series. Everything's so extreme on Discovery Channel. But I just really started thinking about the activism that I used to do, and started realizing that I wasn't so in love with my career. But one thing I'd always fantasized about was, because I had done actually not for PETA, it was on my own. I was at the Kentucky State Fair and was sort of behind the scenes where they were showing all the livestock, and was getting footage just for myself. And seeing farm animals again and knowing about the issues of factory farming, animal rights in every capacity. I was equally as against animal testing and fur and, the whole gamut of, animal welfare issues. But it was farm animals that really spoke to me. Even though I'm from Kentucky, it wasn't like I grew up on a farm. I was hardly ever around farm animals. But seeing these animals again just really sort of drove home the affinity I had for them, and knowing that farm animals, more than any other issue with animal welfare, they really get the shaft. By sheer number alone, they are exploited, and they live an entire life of suffering. And so it was my starting to feel a little burnt out in my career and falling seriously in love with farm animals that I decided to go out to Farm Sanctuary. And that led to me hearing about their Critter Care Conference they have every year, where it's a crash course weekend where you basically hear all about what it takes to run a sanctuary. And I went, and God, it was intimidating. It was so much work, and we had to do media interviews with one another, and and just the amount of work and the suffering and the things that you see in the in the rescue cases. After going to the Critter Care Conference at Farm Sanctuary, I met Gene and Lori there that weekend. They're actually the ones that conduct the whole workshop, and talked to them about how I used to do undercover work for PETA, and being at Farm Sanctuary. I'm sorry?
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
For folks that don't know, who are Gene and Lori?
Gene and Lori Bouston, the founders of Farm Sanctuary.
Right. Okay, sorry.
And so basically, I met them. I told them that I used to do some undercover work. And Gene actually, at that moment, really needed, he was actually looking for people that week who'd be willing to go undercover to get some video at stockyards in Texas for some congressional hearings about downed animals. He was looking for new footage. And we talked at length about it, and I hadn't done undercover work in probably about 4 years, but I was willing to do it again. Being there that weekend with activists, with people that were, all like-minded people, really sort of refueled the flame for, my animal rights agenda. And so about 2 weeks later, I went undercover for them in Texas. Went to like 17 different stockyards by myself, all farm animal stockyards, of course. And they're open to the public, but big, big cameras everywhere, about no still cameras or video cameras. And basically, I was sneaking around the furthest back behind the lots and out in the parking lots and trying to film the loading and unloading of animals, but mostly looking for downed animals that were just lying somewhere in a pile at the stockyard, because lots of them don't survive the trip or they get injured during the trip, and they're just left in piles to die because they can't move through the arena where they're auctioned off. So I'd made a little spy purse, something that I used to use for PETA, tiny little camera. Of course, now the cameras are much tinier. And I mounted a DV camera into the bottom of my purse and would just walk around with my purse with the lens out of a little hole and would document what I could that way. And then when I had the opportunity, it had a quick release plate on it, and I would lift it up out of my purse and get better footage. And have you all ever seen Peaceable Kingdom? I'm sure you have.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Do you know the shot in Peaceable Kingdom of the little calf who's in a pen, and he's trying desperately to walk, but one of his legs is dislocated?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? His leg's just floppy.
Yeah.
That was the first day that I was there, and it had been, again, a couple of years, 4 years since I'd done undercover work, and still hadn't even seen anything that close up, that was that a little baby calf that is so young and fresh from its mother's wound, who's confused, who has a serious injury, and you just know the fate of this animal. And then to watch these guys at the stockyard dragging these animals by their ears and their hind legs, babies, kicking the babies to make them get up and walk. They're so weak because they haven't even had 3 days of their mother's colostrum to stand up and walk on their own. And just to see this, I went back to the hotel room that night and talked to Gene Bouston on the phone and just cried and really, just didn't want to do the rest of the week, basically, and just talked about how horrible it was. And luckily I didn't. I saw a lot of horrible things that week, but it was that, on my first day, that was really so painful. And I'm so glad that the rest of the world has seen footage like that. Thank God for, Jenny and James of Tribe of Heart for making that incredible documentary. But it's a real honor to have been a part of it in that way and be behind the trenches, well, actually right there on the front lines, and getting this footage and making people see the atrocities that lurk in places like stockyards and factory farms. But it was that week of getting undercover footage that I decided I wanted to give up my career and just dedicate myself to doing something about it, being a voice for the animals, and do undercover work when it was necessary, but also for my own sanity, be a part of the healing in some way. And that's what led me to pack things up and go work for Farm Sanctuary for 10 months. The deal was that I would do undercover video footage for them when they needed it. I would also help Gene in campaigns if I could do some work on the shelter and learn the ropes. And so it ended up that arrangement didn't work so well, and I ended up having to choose, do I stay in the office and work on campaigns with Gene, or do I go work on the shelter? And it was kind of a no-brainer for me. I really wanted to be out on the shelter. And so I lived and worked there for 10 months, and I did some, my husband is a film editor, and so he and I teamed up and did a couple of videos for Farm Sanctuary, and we're actually working on their 20th year anniversary video right now. But I've got hours and hours of great footage from Farm Sanctuary, and working there was one of the most wonderful experiences of my life. And honestly, I don't see how you could embark on opening a sanctuary without working for one, because it's a never-ending learning process. There's so much to learn about these animals.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I did it. I stuck with it for 10 months, and I came out of it and still wanted to do it. So I feel pretty good about that.
That's good.
So, gotta every once in a while acknowledge your own motivation and feel good about it. Like you guys, look at the successful thing you're doing.
Well, thank you.
You're the hottest thing around.
Yeah, right. I think that's really an interesting story, and I'm glad you were able to tell us all of that, because I think it helps people to see the ways in which everybody kind of grows into various kinds of activism that tend to fit what they can do. But I think it'd be interesting to maybe change gears a little and ask, kind of what are the next steps for your sanctuary, and where are you heading next, and what can people do out there to help you get there?
Well, money is always needed. I mean, of course, we're a nonprofit organization. We've been lucky enough to receive one grant, but we really just got our 501c3 in August. Because we haven't been open to the public, we're going through the ropes right now with the town to get all the permits so that we can legally operate as, basically, I think we fall into the category of a nonprofit recreational facility. So most sanctuaries, any sort of new operation that you're creating, you have to go through all these channels. So that's where we're at right now. But if all goes as planned, we're going to open our doors probably in late July or August, and dates will be announced on our website. And we're going to start doing farm tours on the weekends. We don't mind people camping out on the property. We invite people to come up for weeks at a time if they're up for it and volunteer. There's always lots of poop to clean up, things of that nature, critters to feed, and projects galore. Fencing, building barns, painting barns, fixing roofing. We had Umani Sanctuary donated 3 coops to us, and they're in need of some repair. Lots of stuff. We plan on, as soon as we can afford it, putting some yurts out in the woods, for people to camp out in. But for right now, we don't mind people camping on the premises. But basically, we want to create a sanctuary for people and animals to really help people get back in touch with these animals and to meet them and to see them and to understand them and to want to fight for them. Because they're another species. They're other beings that share this earth with us, and people rarely stop to acknowledge that and to respect them and acknowledge that they're here for their own reasons and they live for their own reasons. And I just want to be a part, even if it's not turning the world into vegans, which, God, I would love to do. And I'm so thrilled when I hear of people that, walk away and they've changed their diet. But at least to instill a rage in people, or a sadness, or something that motivates them to be a part of the outcry against how we treat these animals. And apart from that, and being a sanctuary, we we're going to have this education center. We're going to be, having a little film series. We've got theater seats and a screen that were donated from Umani Sanctuary. I'm telling you, they laid it out on us. It was like
great.
winning a sanctuary lottery. It was incredible. So apart from that, we're talking to artists about putting large-scale sculptures out in the pastures because we're in Woodstock, the colony of the arts, and we think it'd be really cool. Critters can scratch up against it. It's got to be safe for the critters.
Excellent.
Something goats can climb on, livable art that's out there in the pastures with the animals, something that keeps them mentally occupied, something that stimulates them artistically. But really, just so they're not out in these barren pastures. If it's another way to bring people to the sanctuary, it's another way to spread our message of compassion. And so, we're just trying to be inventive here.
Well, that's great.
Excellent.
Do you guys have a website or anything?
Yeah, our website is woodstocksanctuary.org. It was initially Woodstock FAS, as in Farm Animal Sanctuary, but see how much longer that took to explain than just woodstocksanctuary.org.
Yeah.
And you can see some of our animals. You can go online and you can sponsor an animal. For as little as $10 a month, you can sponsor a chicken, or I think it's $50 a month, you can sponsor a cow. And we really need sponsorships, and we need members. And, we're just now really starting to put ourselves out there. And we've had a couple of fabulous events with the group. Mercury Rev did a benefit concert for us, and Nellie Mackay did a benefit concert for us. And, so we're hoping to start not only a film series, but a concert series. Just interesting and entertaining things that bring people together and bring the issues at hand to light, So that's our hopes for us. And
Excellent.
we just, we want to direct people to the website. There's tons of information on there about factory farms and what we're doing and recent rescues and the alliances and wonderful links. And we totally need to put Vegan Freaks on our website. What are we thinking? Be a part of this movement and be effective. That's what it's all about.
Excellent. And you have a fundraiser coming up in New York City.
This is true. It is March 30th, and it's at Phil Sherman's Bar, which is also called No Malice Palace. I'm not a New York City girl, but I think that's a more well-known name. It's in the East Village, and it's a suggested donation of $20 at the door. But basically, Dan Ferraro, who's on our board of directors, Dan and his lovely wife, Ashley, and Don Ladd, they're hosting this event for us. They're really active board members we couldn't do this without them. But Dan's going to be performing, doing his funny Dan thing. He's actually getting ready to embark on a comedy tour, and all the proceeds come back to the farm. He's awesome at making money for us. And so that's March 30th at 7:30, Phil Sherman's Bar, 197 East 3rd Street between Avenues A and B, New York. And it's March 30th, which is a Thursday, at 7:30 p.m. until about 10:30. So lots of restaurants are donating some yummy vegan hors d'oeuvres, and we got funny man Dan Ferraro and a little slideshow about the farm, and a portion of the bar goes to us, so we encourage people to drink up. So be responsible in their drinking, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
But if people want to go to woodstocksanctuary.org, they can find more information about the event, and that's our next event, and we post all of our events on our website. So we hope that the New York City listeners will come out and support us.
Well, that's great.
Excellent.
We'll make sure to post all that stuff on the web on our site as well, and so people get to know, and hopefully you can come out and throw some cash your way.
Yeah, we like cash throwing. That's great.
Yeah, we
Of
do
course,
too.
yeah.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Hey, can I ask you one more question though, quickly?
Sure.
When we do these interviews, we usually end up asking someone this question. We ask everyone this question. We have a lot of listeners who are like vegetarians that are on the fence of going, they're ready to go vegan, but they're not quite there yet. Do you have any advice for getting those people to kind of jump over the fence and go all the way vegan?
It's like quitting smoking. You got to do it. But the easy way for a lot of people to do it is to come to a sanctuary and to meet Dylan, our little veal calf, and to know that he's one of millions of discards from the dairy industry every year. his life is nothing but fear and misery and loneliness as a veal calf. But not only people just think that cows produce milk. They don't realize that they have to have an offspring, and if it's a male offspring, he becomes a veal.
That's right.
So, if you're a vegetarian and you're adamant about where veal comes from and what a horrible industry it is, but you're not doing some introspective looking and acknowledging with yourself that you're responsible for that industry because of your milk consumption. Totally unnatural in the first place, milk consumption, but knowing that you're a part of this incredibly evil industry, not just the veal industry, but the dairy industry. The dairy cows have it worse than cows that are used for beef. They go through pregnancy after pregnancy after pregnancy, have their children yanked away from them within hours or 48 hours at most after birth. And they go through this constantly, and that's their life until they become cheap hamburger that we feed our kids in school lunch programs. And it's really just an issue of making the connection. Educate yourself and quit turning a blind eye to it, and come and meet a young veal calf who lives, only because someone was kind enough to pull him away before he got on the truck to become veal, but who doesn't know his mother doesn't know where he went. And there's serious connections with these animals. To see a calf pulled away from its mother is a terrible and painful thing to witness. And so come visit a sanctuary and meet the animals who are affected by your milk drinking and cheese consumption.
That's
It's
great
the best way to
advice.
do it. Yeah.
There's a little bit of veal in every glass of milk.
Yep.
Absolutely. And pus,
And
Plus, exactly.
which is disgusting.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate it, and we'll make sure that people know how to get in touch with you if they need to.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
All right, so thank you, Jenny, for speaking
Absolutely.
with us. I was just amazed at her background.
Yeah, it's such an interesting background, and all the things she pulls together to do the work that she does. It's really cool.
Yeah, and we need to thank Tofu Punk for originally getting us in touch with and for mentioning us to Jenny. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, basically getting this great information about the sanctuary.
We have some Tofu Punk voicemails we need to get on
We
to.
do. That'll
So,
come next week.
Yeah. So that's it for the show this week.
All right.
That was show number 32.
Yes. And as usual, if you would like to subscribe, you can go to our website, podcast.veganfreak.com.
And you can send us email at podcast@veganfreak.com. That goes to both of us, which is nice.
You can always call our voicemail line, 267-295-1944. You didn't get to hear the jingle this week, but there you go.
I can play it, but I don't need to go there.
No, we'll play it next week.
And so we're always happy to hear from you. We always like to hear from our listeners and know what's going on out there and all that.
There you go. Get our show notes at podcast.veganfreak.com as well.
And there's always an archive of all of our shows at podcast.veganfreak.com. Recently, we had to cut down the length of our feed on iTunes, so now we only have 12 shows in the iTunes store because the feeds are getting too big. So we had to cut it back because FeedBurner kept complaining.
Oh,
Big
well,
mess.
but you can still go to our website and get all the archive shows.
Exactly. You can go to the show. There's every episode there since our embarrassing first episode all the way up to number 32. And subscribers, there's a new private subscriber podcast, and you know where to get it. And if you don't know where to get it and you subscribe and you haven't heard from me, you get in touch with me because I'm pretty sure I've contacted all our subscribers as of today. But if you haven't heard from me, you need to let me know, okay?
There you go.
So anyway, thanks everybody. Make sure you take your vitamin B. Vitamin B once a week, right? B12.
Indeed. Once a week.
And we'll be back next week with more Vegan Freak Radio.
See
you
y'all
later.
next week.
Vegan freak.